Hi, I'm Bill Bradley. Join me for a recent excerpt of American Voices. At his inauguration, President Biden quoted a song that has meant a lot to people all over the country. It's a song with a message of hope, a song that unites us. It's called American Anthem. Gene Scheer wrote that song. He's also a librettist with the Metropolitan Opera and other opera houses around the world. He's currently working on 3 operas, including one based on the film classic, It's a Wonderful Life. Librettist and composer Gene Scheer is here with me now. Gene, welcome to American Voices.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So tell us about the time when you thought you'd be an opera singer.
Well, I was kind of like a AAA baseball player that couldn't quite hit the fastball when I got to the majors. That's kind of how my career went. I studied at a very fine conservatory, the Eastman School of Music in Rochester, New York. And then I went off to Europe, which this is in the 1980s, which was frequently what people did to try to start their careers because there were a lot of opera companies in Germany and Austria and such. And I started auditioning, and I wasn't getting the work that I hoped that I would get. But I was a good actor, and I wound up working in musical theater. So I worked at a very prominent theater in Vienna for almost 10 years called Theater de Wien. And I did lots of shows, long runs of musicals. And while I was doing these long runs of musicals, I started writing. I continued to have the dream of one day, hitting the stage and being an opera singer. And when I came back to the States, I was studying with Renee Fleming's former teacher. Renee Fleming, of course, the great soprano. And I studied with her for about 3 months. And at the end of each lesson, I would sit down at the piano and play whatever song I was writing. And Pat loved my songs, but my voice not so much. And one day I came in and put my music on the piano, and Pat looked up from the piano keyboard and said, Gene, I can make you better, but not that much better. Keep the $100. Let's go have coffee, and you should write your songs. And that's what I did. And curiously, it wasn't really either a shock or didn't make me particularly sad or despairing. I had been studying for 17 years and trying, and I felt like someone was giving me permission to go off and do something else. And luckily, for the last 30 years, that's what I've been doing. And the singers I didn't get to sing with, I've been lucky enough to get to write for.
At President Biden's inauguration, you didn't know he was going to quote the song. So what was it like for you to hear him quote American Anthem?
I was just blown away. I was sitting in Connecticut, in my house in Washington, Connecticut. I had my computer on my lap. I was kind of pretending to work and watching the inauguration. And I was delighted that President Biden was being inaugurated. And when he cited my song, I just couldn't believe it. I immediately, after talking to, I called my wife, and then I called Denise Graves, who was really responsible for connecting the song to President Biden. No, actually, Ken Burns called me, and he was also responsible because he used the song in his documentary called The War on PBS, and with Nora Jones singing it. And that sort of gave the song the prominence that sort of led to this moment, which I couldn't quite believe, honestly. I was just kind of floored. It was great.
All we've been given by those who came before, the dream of a nation where freedom would endure, the working prayers of centuries have brought us to this day. What shall be our legacy? What will our children say? Let them say of me, I was one who believed in sharing the blessings I received. Let me know America, America, I gave my best to you.
And so, how did it really feel that here you were, your song is now a part of history?
It was very moving. I mean, on some level, I wasn't really thinking about it initially in terms of history, although yes, it's a moment in history. I was thinking about it in connection with my parents, who I lost during the pandemic, not related to the pandemic, but during that time. I mean, they sort of imbued me with the values that I tried to, illuminate in the song. And they were great people, very politically active, just great human beings. When they retired, they started a soup kitchen in North Adams, Massachusetts. There were those kinds of people. And even though they weren't there, I felt connected with them. And, how I wrote the song initially was my parents, who were school teachers in New Jersey. I grew up in New Jersey. And my dad was a 8th grade history teacher in Newton, New Jersey. And when they retired, they opened up a bed and breakfast in Williamstown, Massachusetts. And when they ended that part of their journey and they were moving to a condo, they were selling the thousands of books that were in their library at a yard sale. And I happened upon this book called Miracle in Philadelphia, which my dad had used in New Jersey when he was teaching these 13 and 14-year-old kids. It's a book for young adults about the Constitution. And I read it and just got inspired. I didn't write this song like many of the other pieces I've done on a commission or something. It was just something that came. So it was really, I wrote it relatively quickly. I think the third verse took a few days to figure out actually how I wanted to do it. But I was inspired to do it. And it was, I think in large measure, even though an homage to my folks who really, I think, were great citizens of the country and great people.
So are there lines that mean something different to you now than when you wrote them?
I think that the line, valiant battles fought together, acts of conscience fought alone. These are the seeds from which America has grown. There's always this kind of handshake between the collective and the personal that's sort of woven into the story of America. And, personal freedom versus collective rights. What are our responsibilities to each other? I think now, that's been the story of America all the way through, but it certainly seems to be applicable right now. Acts of conscience. I was probably thinking of Rosa Parks when I wrote that line, but I could have thought of my father who did wonderful things along the way.
Battles fought together, acts of conscience fought alone. These are the seeds from which America has grown. Let them say of me, I was one who believed in sharing the blessings that I received. Let me know in my heart when my days are through. America, America, I gave my best to you.
When you say, America, America, I gave my best to you, how do you think we can each give our best to the country?
I think you can do it by first of all, just being a good human being to your neighbors. I think we frequently think about doing some grand gesture in our lives. And if we don't do a grand gesture, it's not meaningful. But, just going down and washing dishes at a soup kitchen, or helping a kid with his or her homework. There's so many different ways when you get up each day to help. And as I always say, when you go to bed at night, you know what you did that day. And you know whether you had an impact on somebody's life. We are tributaries flowing into the stream of America. And there are some are mighty rivers and some are just, creeks and small streams. Right. But it takes everyone pulling together to create a country that we want to live in, that we're proud of. That is something we can give to the future generations and that we can be proud of.
Looking back on your career and you reflect on your path, how's it gotten you to this place artistically?
Well, I'll tell you, I didn't know when I wrote the song, I had no idea that it would have the life that it's had. Actually, back in 1998, I went to a recording studio and just recorded a demo of me singing the song. It was fun to sing it. One of the things when you're actually in a recording studio and the clock is ticking, I wasn't doing multiple takes. I went in, I sang it really quickly so I could get a good recording of it so that I could share it with other people. When I hear the song now, as I first sang it in 1998, it's nostalgic because, you never know. It's like when you look back at your life and, like looking at a picture of yourself when you're young, you don't know where that life is going to go, right? And I had no idea that all of these things would happen with it, or that I'd be here talking about it today.
Let them say of me, I was one who believed in sharing the blessings I received. Let me know in my heart when my days are through. America, America, I gave my best to you. For those who think they have nothing to share, who fear in their hearts there's no hero there, know that quiet acts of dignity are that which fortifies the soul of the nation that never dies. Let them say of me, I was one who believed in sharing the blessings I received. Let me know in my heart when my days are through. America, 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 I gave my best to you.
It's great.
Thank you so much.
So when people write you, what do they say to you about what moved them by the song? I'm sure you've gotten thousands of letters over the years.
I don't know if it's thousands, but yes, I've gotten many, many letters. And it's very gratifying that the song has been sung in so many different places, from churches and temples to large, concert venues. So I think the thing that people respond to the most in the song is this notion of personal responsibility, that people want to feel connected. I mean, I think it's one of the challenges right now is people feel so disconnected from each other. And it's one of the joys of life is community, and to feel like you are, you're sewn together with the people around you. Ultimately, people don't want to escape. They want to feel connected to each other. And I think that is something that it certainly goes across political aisles and perspectives. I think it's just a human need. That's something that I like to think that the song speaks to, and it resonates with people.
Right. Well, I'm sure even people who have political disagreements would find common ground in this song.
This song was sung before, Denise Graves sang this song before George W. Bush put his hand on the Bible and took the oath of office. And then, of course, it was sung at Ruth Bader Ginsburg's memorial. So it's various perspectives. My politics are, I would call them progressive. That wasn't what was in my mind when I was writing the song. I was writing just what
you were writing to your parents.
I was writing to my parents. Yeah, I was writing to my parents. That's exactly right. And I think that that's what people respond to in the song. It's not a polemic. It's almost like a prayer to be better, to be connected to each other. And Jill Santopolo from Random House called me up and asked me if she could use the text and create a children's book based on American Anthem. And she had this great idea of getting 12 different diverse artists, give each of them 4 lines of text from the book, and have them do an illustration. And they put together this absolutely stunning book, and it came out about 6 months after the inauguration. And I'm really proud of it.
Can't wait to see it. So tell us about the work that you're doing now. How do you explain what you do as a librettist?
I write the text, the lyrics for operas. One way of describing it is I'm a playwright, but for operas. But of course, operas are sung, musical expressions, but they, need words and they need stories, and they also have to have those stories structured in a way that sort of invites music in to, as I say, win the day. I mean, music is the marrow of the matter in an opera. It's the thing that really, moves people's hearts and souls. But you can't do it without a libretto, which is the words and how the story is structured. I've been working mostly with Jake Hagee, this wonderful composer out of San Francisco. And Jake and I have written a number of operas, including Moby Dick, which has traveled around the world. It was on PBS Great Performances from San Francisco, and it's going to the Metropolitan Opera in a few years, which I'm really thrilled about. And Jake and I worked on an opera, a new opera that appeared just a few years ago, which is now going to London, the English National Opera, based on the Frank Capra classic, It's a Wonderful Life.
As a librettist, you work with a composer, and then, of course, you have the singers, and you're a part of a team. Do you have any advice for people about how best to collaborate and be a team member?
I have to say, I was a big New York Knicks fan and a big fan of yours, and the 1969 Knicks were the team of my youth. And you folks had the expression, the open man, just try to find the person that was open and give him the ball,
right,
so that you could win as a team. And I think when you're collaborating on an opera, whether it's you're working with the composer, of course, and also the producers, and sometimes and certainly the directors, and these incredible singers, they often can have great suggestions and contributions to make the piece better. So it's really about, keeping your eye on just trying to craft the greatest piece and not feel so, wed to every word or every note that you write. You have to think of, allow for the possibility that you're not that you're wrong, but there might be a better way to accomplish.
Is that sometimes hard?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I've been working on this piece for the Met right now, and I think I'm just about finished with it. But I've been working on this one scene for 5 or 6 weeks, and I keep doing revisions, and the folks
sounds familiar.
Yeah, saying that's not quite, I don't quite believe that, or I think it can be better, or whatever the particular criticism or suggestion is. And you can go off in a huff, or you can say, they have the best interest of the piece at heart, just like I do, and they're not saying these things, or the composer isn't saying that it's not working for him because he wants to assert power. He really honestly believes that it could be expressed in a better way. So you just have to sort of accept that, and I do.
What about your opera that you're writing about a spy in the Civil War?
Yes, that's also with Jake, and that's for the Houston Grand Opera. And it's an opera we're calling Intelligence. And, many of the pieces that I have done are based on famous books or It's a Wonderful Life is a famous film. In this case, this is based on a little-known historical facts about a spy ring that was being run in Richmond, Virginia during the Civil War by a woman named Elizabeth Van Lew. And she had a slave in the family, Mary Jane Bowser, who was she freed when she was 3 years old. The highlight of the story is that Mary Jane Bowser is placed by Elizabeth Van Lew in the Confederate White House as a spy. It was interesting that Verena Davis and Jefferson Davis had 2 slaves that they owned, and all the other slaves, obviously tragically, were loaned out by members of the community. And so Elizabeth Van Lew was able to get Mary Jane into the Confederate White House, and she was spying on what was going on. There's some of this is the story of Elizabeth Van Lew and the spy ring is very well documented. The story of Mary Jane is, for understandable reasons, is less well documented. But there are aspects of the story that we do know for a fact, and they are extraordinary. She was educated. Mary Jane was sent up north. She was educated. Then she went back to Richmond when she was 10, 11 years old. Then she was sent to Liberia for almost 5 years, from 1855 to 1860. And on the eve of the Civil War, she comes back to the States, goes back to Richmond, and to live in this large mansion that was owned by Elizabeth Van Loo's family. Elizabeth Van Loo's family, her father was like the Home Depot of 1865. He provided all of the hardware that built the University of Virginia, among other things. So they were very, very affluent. So she winds up there, and people didn't know because she was Black and because of the times that she was, in fact, very well educated, very smart, and was able to provide this intelligence. General Grant said that the most important intelligence he received from within Richmond during the war was from Elizabeth Van Loo. And in November of 1865, he went down there. He sat on her porch. Of course, her neighbors weren't very, very happy. They discovered that she had been spying on them. And he made her the Postmaster General of Richmond, which was this is quite a thing at the time. And one of the reasons we don't know exactly what the intelligence that Mary Jane, or presumably Mary Jane, procured was because Elizabeth Van Loo had Grant, had the Department of the Military Department expunge the records. She didn't want her friends and the community in Richmond to know this specific intelligence that she had procured during the war and how she had told everyone, so she didn't want her neighbors to know. So they destroyed those records, and that's why we don't know exactly. So the opera is a little bit of historical fiction, but a lot of fact, and it's being directed by Jawole Zoller, this brilliant director, choreographer who runs the dance company, Urban Bushwomen. And Jawole just won the MacArthur Genius Award this last year.
Sounds fascinating, Gene. Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I'd love for you to see it.
Looking back on your career and you reflect on your path, how's it gotten you to this place artistically? You could have been an opera singer, your voice teacher's advice, and yet here you are. You seem to be at the top of your game.
Well, I think when I reflect on what's happened in my life, if you backward engineer my life, it all makes sense. But when I was going forward, I had no idea I was going to land where I landed. And when I think about my advice to younger folks who are doing this is you can't know the future. You can't know exactly how things are going to unfold. What you can do is show up each day and work really hard and see where it goes. I mean, I wrote the songs that I wrote in Vienna when I was doing those musicals. I just wrote them in my living room. And then when I came back to the States, I had this like 30 or 40 songs to show and a full script that I had written. But I had no idea where it was going to lead. And then it led to, people like Denise Graves and Renee Fleming singing these songs when they heard them. And then that led to the opera world, of course. I guess I just feel incredibly blessed. It's certainly not something I planned. I did not plan to be an opera librettist, but it's kind of worked out. And I said, I think back on how it's all come to pass, I feel incredibly thankful.
Well, but we all benefit from your genius, Gene. We really do. And it's been wonderful having you on American Voices. I can't wait to see the beautiful operas that you're going to be working on.
All right. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
I've been speaking with Gene Scheer. He's a librettist with the Metropolitan Opera and other opera houses around the world. American Anthem is a song that moves me and others all across the world. It's his song, a tribute to his parents and to America. To find out more, visit us on Facebook, American Voices with Senator Bill Bradley.
Let them say of me, I was one who believed in sharing the blessings I received. Let me know in my heart when my days are through. America, I gave my best to you.
Thank you for listening to American Voices here on my YouTube channel. For more interviews celebrating the goodness and creativity of the American people, click the subscribe button below.